Hi, everybody. Welcome to the third installment of the reading of my new book, Improv to Improve, a system for creative problem solving in healthcare. If that's what the title's going to be, I think it is. Okay, so last time we talked about the fact that the Institute of Medicine had come out with a report in 1999 that said that miscommunication among healthcare workers was one of the main causes for all of these deaths. And I was telling you that maybe, like you, I didn't know about this because I was busy with life. After all, I was a single mom, a divorced mom, with 3 kids at the time to raise on my own. And that happens to be where this story begins. It was in the early 90s, after a year of very difficult personal transitions to single life, that I fired the shrink and I enrolled in a stand-up comedy class. Yeah, deep inside, I just knew that I needed to stop focusing on all the self-pity and the angst that was happening and just start laughing again. And stand-up was a great start. I remember from the very first lesson, other comedy students were talking about the benefit of improv training. And that was a little depressing because it was enough financially. I was strapped, and it was enough just to enroll in the stand-up classes. So it took a few months, but finally I was able to begin. But I stalled on this because I was thinking, well, I've been an actor for a long time. As a character actress, as soon as I got to San Francisco, I got an agent, I started going to auditions, and I was pretty good about doing cold readings, and I got hired a lot of the time. So I was doing pretty good with that as a little side job. But I did remember that whenever a director would say to me, okay, now I want you to improv this scene, I'd kind of get stuck or fumble. There was some discomfort there. So I did want to take up this idea about improv training. Finally did it. And as soon as I did, I began to hear conversations differently. And I began to realize that this improv training was useful, not just for on stage, but for real life as well. And as a matter of fact, well, it only took about a few years before I started teaching, as I mentioned, in 1995. And that's when I thought, I'm training business people for this. I should be training healthcare people for this. And I started knocking on the door of where I was working, trying to convince people that they should hire me to train people about improv. But unfortunately, my pleas fell on deaf ears, which is essentially why I decided to go ahead and do my doctoral work on interprofessional communication using improv. And so you're going to hear more about that later in the book. So, the revelation. I'm going to say that in order to create a patient safety environment that we need to save lives, what the world needs now is a tool to bridge the communication gap. So we need a tool to facilitate strong teams and produce clinicians who have a firm command of both their individual emotional intelligence and the group's social intelligence. We'll be talking more about that as well. We need, in other words, a tool to help us communicate effectively. And so I know this may come as a shock. You might think improv, after all, is just a synonym for comedy. But let me just take a little sidebar here and explain this confusion. First, I believe the word improvisation or improv has been devalued, especially in healthcare, because of the production of some of the television shows that you might have seen. you know, if you've seen them, they tout it as clever comedy and pretty much nothing else, as though comedy is easy. Ha ha. You know, we actors have a saying that tragedy is easy, but comedy is hard. Yeah, and it's really true. I'm personally acquainted with some people who have sat in on the audience of these TV shows and some actors who've auditioned for the shows. And what I hear is that they usually keep you there for a minimum of 2 hours, if not 4 hours, so they can get 2 episodes out of it. They edit it down to the nub and they get shows that are 22 minutes long. And the result is that they throw out all of the, well, I'd say poignant or not exactly perfectly funny stuff, right? So that program, of course, is billed as improv comedy because the audiences and the sponsors demand it. And this has to be distinguished from a live theatrical performance that you might attend on stage with no sponsors or TV execs, you know, telling you what to do. And secondly, a lot of business leaders expect that any new leadership program, communication program, it has to be branded, licensed, and expensive in order to be effective. But, you know, the ironic predicament is that healthcare administrators are very slow adopters. They're slow to adapt any kind of a program that's perceived as nothing but fun. I think this comes from an old consumer adage that you get what you pay for, right? And I think that that is certainly true if you're talking about maybe a winter coat made from fine fabric versus some sort of flimsy knockoff. But in educational programs, it's just not necessarily so. You know, Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. And this was proven out by Rogers' theory of innovation. In 1962, he said that anybody who wants to be stuck in the status quo scorns new ideas. And if you want proof of that, just ask Galileo, Jesus, or Einstein, right? Any number of great minds who've challenged the status quo. Based on the latest results from the Joint Commission and the Institute of Medicine, we really don't have any proof that any of the programs that we have going right now have reduced the number of errors, as I mentioned before, or the sentinel events, or patient satisfaction. But on the opposite side, from small startups to very large corporations in the business community, many of them have been early adapters of the premise that heightened creativity can not only assist employees to problem solve, but it assists in innovation. I mean, look around you. The results are in your hand, right? This philosophy has been very effective in the business realm. More and more businesses hire consultants to teach innovation through improvisational training. After all, it's comparatively cheap, it's effective, it's immediately employable, and it's fun. People like these classes. So the next part of the book, I go into the origins of improv, which I want to keep this short for you, but I just want to say the next chapter is we're going to dive into the actual process. So I want to encourage you to buckle up, hang on to your hats, turn off your mobile devices, and focus your attention on one of the most awe-inspiring educational tools that you'll ever come across. Honestly, it's going to change your life. It did mine. I kid you not. So, okay, are you ready? Next time, let's dive in. Talk to you then. Bye.